Traditionally for modern cars, the paintwork is quite soft and poorly resists the hardships of everyday use. After a couple of years of operation, a large number of scratches and small chips appear on the body. But for the corrosion resistance of the owners of Renault Scenic 3, there are no special questions so far. The metal staunchly resists the onslaught of the red disease. The front fenders, pads on the front pillars, and a niche for a spare tire made of polypropylene plastic. In my opinion, this is a minus of this model, since if these parts are damaged, they cannot be straightened and painted over like metal. Also controversial is the decision to sheet the bottom and some parts of the chassis with plastic. At the first outing on the road, the plastic will most likely have to be changed. The unusual location of the VIN number can also be attributed to the features. It is located on the body pillar, on the side of the front passenger door, between the door hinges. Because of this, when registering a car, conflict situation often arise between the expert and the owner. Of the shortcomings of the body parts, one can note the poor quality of the plastic protection of the front optics. Over time it sandblasts, becomes cloudy, worsening the quality of lighting and the ill-conceived design of the wipers. It is inconvenient to get to them, since the hood interferes. For example, in order to get rid of ice from them in winter, you will have to try hard. In addition, on the hood from the inside, not all versions have heat and noise insulation installed. Even Chinese manufacturers do not allow themselves this. There are also complaints about the reliability of the doorstop rovers, which may need to be replaced after 2-3 years of operation. Also, over time, there are failures in the operation of the electric drive of the gas tank flap. Often there are complaints about the performance of door locks. They do not open and close the first time. The reason is that the motor turns sour. In the early stage, it is possible to eliminate the problem by cleaning. Buying a new original lock will cost 200 to 130 USDT. After 3-5 years, the plastic glass holders in the lifting mechanism of the side window begin to collapse. Renault Scenic 3 Grand Scenic has a wide range of power units consisting of gasoline and diesel engines. Petrol 1.2 TCE 115-130 horsepower, 1.4 TCE 130 horsepower, 1.6 110 horsepower, 2.0 138-143 horsepower, and diesel DCI 1.5 85-95 105-110 horsepower, 1.6 110-130 horsepower, 1.9 130 horsepower, 2.0 150 and 160 horsepower, 1.2 H5FT. The smallest gasoline the engine was developed in 2011 as an innovative generation of powertrains for passenger cars and compact crossovers. Despite his young age, he still has certain shortcomings. The most common ailment is increased oil consumption. On some specimens it can reach 0.5 liters per 100 kilometers of distance traveled. To eliminate the disease, you will have to overhaul the engine. Another serious nuisance that befalls this unit is the failure of the phase regulators. Symptoms of a strong crack during the operation of the engine. Restarting the engine helps temporarily fix the problem. The timing system uses a metal chain that is prone to stretching. The metallic ringing that appears when starting a cold engine will tell you about you need to replace the circuit. When using low-quality fuel, salt accumulates on the intake manifold and valves. Because of this, the car stops responding properly to the accelerator pedal dual or stalls. Of the mirror troubles, unstable idling can be noted. Treatment. Often it is possible to solve the problem by flashing the engine control unit. You can also note the unreliable crankshaft oil seal. Over time, oil begins to pass through and the sealing rings of the crankcase ventilation pipe. It cracks over time. Because of this, a durring smell appears in the car interior. As for the resource, it is at an average level and with the proper maintenance will be more than 215,000 kilometers. 1.4 TCE H4JT. Despite the small volume, the 1.4 engine will pleasantly surprise you with good dynamic performance. The timing drive is equipped with a metal chain, but this didn't affect reliability in any way. After 100,000 kilometers, the chain may be asked to be replaced, stretched. Among the shortcomings, one can note the increased oil consumption and the non-repairability of the aluminum block, which moreover is very afraid of even slight overheating. Sometimes the boost sensor fails. A number of other minor malfunctions, such as a sudden loss of traction and difficult starting frost, are treated with a banal flashing. 1.6 K4M. Unlike turbocharged engines, this unit is equipped with a timing belt drive with a recommended replacement interval of 60,000 km. At the same run, the alternator belt is also changed. The water pump, as a rule, runs 2-3 times longer, but there are rare cases of its failure on a run of 70,000–90,000 km. The biggest drawback of this engine is not its reliability, but certain miscalculations during installation. The fact is that, in winter, while driving, snow falls on the timing case and slowly melts, and water flows to the very bottom of the belt. If at this moment you turn off the car and leave it on the street, the water will begin to freeze and an ice slide will form. When starting the engine, ice gets under the gear and can provoke a jump to break in the belt, due to which the pistons meet the valves. Also, on the internet, there are often complaints about the reliability of the crankshaft pulley for Spanish-made engines. As a rule, the failure of a crankshaft entails the disruption of the damper spring. This trouble can befall even cars with low mileage. Of the less significant shortcomings, one can note the unreliability of the phase regulators. Service life is less than 100,000 km. The idle speed controller and the other sensors. Symptoms: speed float. If the engine began to work unstably, first of all it is worth to check the condition of the ignition coils. They are the Achilles heel of this unit. Also, it will not be superfluous to replace the candles and clean the throttle body. When inspecting a car, pay attention to the presence of oil and coolant smudges. The crankshaft oil seal and pump are leaking. On cars with a mileage of more than 100,000 km, valve cover gaskets also leak. 2.0 M4R. The 2-liter engine, like other Renault Scenic 3 units, is famous for its increased oil consumption. Most often, the oil burner is caused by the occurrence of oil scraper rings and is solved by decocking the engine. The timing chain also requires attention. Over time it stretches. As a rule, the disease is accompanied by a loss of power, dips and uneven idling. The only solution is to replace the chain. Often the cause of unstable operation of the unit at idle is severe contamination of the throttle valve. It is also worth noting that this unit is very afraid of overheating. Even a slight excession of temperature from the norm can lead to the fact that the head will lead. With the advent of heat, some owners notice a loss of power. The DMRV thermistor is to blame for this, which fails during the heat, limiting the fuel supply. Another disadvantage of this motor is the presence of extraneous sounds that appear for the following reasons. Valve clearances are not adjusted, the rear support is out of order, the alternator belt is stretched, the belt can be tightened, etc. The engine resource is 350,000 km. Important: when replacing spark plugs, be sure to use a torque range to follow the recommendations for tightening torque, 20 nanometers. If this is not done, there is a high probability of cracks in the threads, damage to the cooling jacket, followed by antifreeze entering the combustion chamber. Symptoms: the motor starts to triple will be progressive, gargling appears in the expansion tank, and antifreeze appears in the candle well, usually in the first one. If this trouble occurs, the head of the block will only have to be thrown away. 1.5 K9K. In a 1.5-liter unit, the connection rod bearings of the crankshaft are the weak point. As a rule, they turn them by 150 to 100,000 km. This is due to a deterioration in the performance of the oil pump. Often, the destruction of the liners leads to premature failure of the turbine. Timely replacement of liners can protect you from unforeseen expenses. Less trouble can be caused by a high-pressure pump, high-pressure fuel pump. Over time, it begins to drive metal chips, which provokes accelerated wear of the fuel system. The noseless fuel line and gas tank become unusable. This ailment is accompanied by engine tripping. Fuel injectors painfully endure work on low-quality fuel. They begin to make extraneous sound. If you drive a Lamborghini diesel fuel for a long time, this can result in burnout of the pistons. Another weak point is the electronics. Most of all complaints about malfunctions of the operation of the boost, pressure and crankshaft position sensors. We're buying a Renault Scenic 3 with a diesel engine. Do not forget about possible trouble with the EGR valve and the need to replace the particular filter every 115 to 100,000 kilometers. But frankly, replacing it is so expensive that in almost 99% of cases it is cut out, but do not change. It is worth nothing that the motor have a power of 85 and 106 horsepower, particular filter was not installed. With proper maintenance, oil change every 7–8,000 kilometers, the motor can last up to 400,000 kilometers. Its reliability 1.9 F9Q DCI and 2.0 M9R. Some information about Renault Scenic 3 with 1.9 DCI engines. It is only known that this unit, like the 1.5 DCI, can surprise on the form of crank connection rod bearings. There are also complaints about the reliability of electronics. The crankshaft position and boost pressure sensor will fail. In some instances, the cause of glitches is poorly laid electrical wiring. If you do not follow the oil line, it will quickly become clogged with sludge, and this in turn will negatively affect the life of the motor and turbine. It is also periodically required to clean the seal of the engine stop damper. If this is not done over time, they will harden and begin to leak oil. In a 2-liter engine, the problem with liners is rare. However, this motor is capable of presenting a number of no less unpleasant surprises. One of these is the stretching of the timing chain to 150,000 kilometers. The trouble is exacerbated by the high cost of spare parts and work to place it. The replacement of Bosch piezo injectors, which painfully endure the quality of our diesel fuel, is also quite expensive. Also, due to poor fuel, problem with the particular filter, EGR and high-pressure fuel pumps appear ahead of time. For Renault Scenic 3, 4 types of transmission were offered. 5 and 6-speed mechanism, 6 speeds, robot DC4, stepless variator CVT company Jetco JF011E, and 6-speed hydraulic machine Jetco AJ0, which is paired with a 2-liter diesel engine. In terms of reliability, mechanisms have proven themselves best of all. Therefore, if you do not want to frequently repair the gearbox when buying a used car, it is advisable to give preference to this type of transmission. The most common cost faced by owners of cars with a manual transmission are clutch replacement, once every 150 to 100,000 kilometers, costing around $100, and the replacement of a dual-mass flying wheel at a range of 200 to 150,000 kilometers. For replacing these details will have to be laid out somewhere around $600–900 USD. You should also make sure that there are no oil leaks through the seal. Automatic transmission is not bad in terms of reliability and automatic, but it should be understood that it will not be capricious only if it regularly changes the oil every 40–60,000 kilometers. It is recommended to use Elfmatic J6. It would seem that this is nothing if not for a couple of nuances. Firstly, the cost of the original oil is quite high, and 3.5 liters are required for one replacement. Secondary, it is not so easy to find it. If you don't change the oil in timely manner or pour it anyway, prepare money to replace the ring, bushing seals, torque converter, clutch and solenoids. The declared dressers of the box is 250,000 kilometers, but with proper maintenance it can cover more than 300,000 kilometers. When diagnosing, drying a drop of oil if it smells burnt, this is a sure sign of burnt clutches and the need for a machine overhaul. When buying a car with such a transmission, you should understand that it's much more demanding on oil purity than a conventional automatic transmission. Therefore, the oil in it should be changed every 30–40,000 kilometers. The operation of CVT on old oil does not manifest itself in any way while driving, but significantly reduces the life of the belt and cone bearings. A characteristic hum will tell about the poor condition of these transmission elements. If the cone bearings are not replaced in a timely manner, this can lead to their misalignment and critical wear of the cones. Replacing 4 bearings costs $30–40. The first symptoms can appear quite early, on a run of less than 70,000 kilometers. Of the common ailment of the variator, the unreliability of the box oil cooling system hose can be noted. It often flies, bursts, frays and leaks. The appearance of jerks during switching between forward and backward models is the result of severe wear of the splined joints of the plunger gear couplings, and its clutch package is also unreliable. On a run of 100–130,000 kilometers, the high-pressure pump valve and solenoids often fail. By 150–200,000 kilometers, replacement of the belt, step motor and shaft bearings is required. The overhaul of the variator will require from 1,000 to 2,000 USD. Robot. The robotic transmission DC4 EDC turned out to be the most unsuccessful in this list. Of the operational shortcomings of the robot, one can notice sluggishing when driving is toughest, when the gearbox chosen between first and second gear. Often the robot is called for strong vibration, periodic jerking is frequent electrical errors. In addition, once every 40–50,000 kilometers, it is desirable to adapt the transmission, compensation for wear of the clutch discs. MAN offers shortcomings. A small resource and high cost of the clutch can be distinguished. It becomes unusual at a run of 100–150,000 kilometers. Replacement will cost 1,000–1,500 USD. The need to replace the clutch will be told by vibration or terms when shifting gears. At the same run, you need to be ready to replace the different bearings and the clutch electric drive. The left drive oil seal can also be attributed to the weak points, it passes oil. According to one of the popular hypotheses, it is broken by the backlash of the differential bearing. Closer to 200,000 kilometers, the ECU fails -500–800 USD. Depending on the driving style and operation conditions, the robot is able to serve 200–300,000 kilometers. Renault Scenic 3 uses a standard suspension for this class of car, MacPherson strut in front, semi-independent beam in the back. In good condition, the suspension provides a good ride and good handling, which allows you to move around in this family car with a high level of comfort. As for the reliability of the chassis, there are a couple of weak points here. In addition to the stabilizer struts, 30–50,000 kilometers go. The owners of Renault Scenic 3 name a small resource of answers and fenders of the front strut. They can become unusual by 40,000 kilometers. Replacing the original answers with a high-quality analog solved the problem for a long time. The support bearings of the front struts and ball bearings are also not famous for their long service life. For many, they do not even care for 70,000 kilometers. The rest of the chassis elements can last more than 100,000 kilometers. So, for example, wheel bearings run 100–130,000 kilometers. Silent block on the front levers 120–150,000 kilometers. Front shock absorbers 150–180,000 kilometers. It is worth nothing that the original ball and silent blocks are sold only reassembled with the front lever 50–70 USD, but in the non-original these parts can be purchased separately. The rear suspension inconsiderate, indestructible. Despite this, shock absorbers will have to be replaced once every 150,000 kilometers. Closer to 250,000 kilometers of run, the silent block of the beam, about $100, are asked to be replaced. The steering system of the Renault Scenic 3 as well as the handbrake drive are equipped with an electric drive. The electric power steering does not cause any problem, but the electric handbrake can present surprise in the form of spontaneous operation while driving. Incorrect operation of the parking brake is usually caused by corrosion of the contact or damage to the wiring. Consumable resource. Steering tips hold 80–100,000 kilometers, traction up to 200,000 kilometers. Brake pads go 40–60,000 kilometers. There are enough discs for 2–3 sets of pads. The Renault Scenic 3 salon impresses with its spaciousness and a large number of all kinds of gloves compartments, pockets and niches for every small thing. They are found in all sorts of places and it is not always possible to find them if you do not know the location in advance. As for the quality of finishing materials, it is at a very high level. Despite this, there are still some comments to them. So, for example, the plastic on the door cards under the power window buttons received a lot of criticism. It gets very dirty and scratched. The upholstery of the seats is quite easily soiled. On the second row of seats, seat belts, buckles annoy passengers. Especially those who sit in the middle, they stick into the fifth points during a long trip. As for the electrical equipment of the cabin, there are few complaints about its reliability. Factory navigation received the most criticism, often working incorrectly due to the lack of fresh map updates. Many owners of Renault Scenic 3 in a budget configuration faced such a problem as the failure of the monochrome display on the onboard computer. The problem lies in the printed circle board. Replacing the display is not cheap. If you want to save money, you can resolder the board. Fortunately, there are enough craftsmen today. In an expensive version of the car, a TFT display is installed, which is also no, yes, and it will charge or go out. On cars of the first years of production, problems often arise with the ventilation system, air conditioning failure. A play appears on the compressor pulley, may jam, leaks appear in the cooling radiator and the lower aluminum tube located in the area of U200B, U200B THE right side member. There are also often complaints about the failure of the heater motor, they wear out brushes or the resistor fails. A new motor will cost $100–150 USD. About the same amount will be asked for a replacement. You need to disassemble the front panel. Closer to 200–250,000 kilometers, the generator fails. The brushes, diode bridge, and voltage regulator wear out. At the same run, the starter also starts to mope. Often cleaning the bendix helps bring it back to life. If you are the owner of this car model, please describe the problem that you had to face during the operation of the car. Perhaps it is your review that will help readers of our site when choosing a car.